Hello, everyone. Let's talk about the dark. Not the absence of light, but that heavy, pressing darkness that descends around 3 in the morning. The kind of darkness where the ceiling vanishes and the room fills with the ghosts of yesterday's mistakes and the phantoms of tomorrow's fears. This is the hour of the wolf, when your own mind turns against you, whispering every insecurity, every failure, every catastrophic possibility into your ear. We call it anxiety. We call it stress. We try to medicate it or meditate it away. But what if I told you this monster isn't new? What if I told you that one of the greatest kings in history fought this exact same beast, night after night, and left behind a battle plan for us to follow? We think of King David as a giant, slayer, a poet, a man after God's own heart. We don't often think of him as, but he was. And in his darkest moments, he forged a weapon. Not of bronze or iron, but of words. A specific kind of prayer, a raw, desperate, and ultimately world-changing communication that tore through the darkness. This isn't about religion. It is about spiritual technology. It's a 3-minute technique that can dismantle the engine of your late night anxiety before it takes over. We're about to walk into the night with David, and we're coming back with his weapon. The story begins not in a palace, but under a terrifyingly vast, star-filled sky. Imagine you are a boy, barely a teenager. Your whole world is the smell of sheep, the sharp sting of the wind, and the profound, crushing loneliness of the wilderness. Your brothers are off training for war, living lives of purpose. It's alive with things that want to kill you. The howl of a wolf is not a distant, romantic sound. It is a promise of teeth and death. The growl from the shadows is not your imagination. David the shepherd wasn't a peaceful boy strumming a harp in a sun-drenched field. He was a sentinel, a guardian on the front lines of a forgotten war. Every night was a vigil. His enemies weren't armies yet. They were far more primal. A lion, its muscles coiling in the darkness. A predator of perfect, silent lethality. A bear, a shaggy mountain of rage and claws. And the greatest enemy of all, the fear that pulsed in his own young heart. In those long, silent hours, what does a boy do? He has no one to talk to. His father is miles away. His brothers mock him, so he talks to the silence. He talks to the God his ancestors. They are guttural cries. They are desperate bargains whispered into the wind. God, if you are there, show me the shadow before it moves. Guide my hand. Don't let me die out here. Don't let me be forgotten. This is the first principle of the Davidic prayer, brutal honesty. He didn't pretend to be brave. He gave his fear a voice. He screamed his terror into the face of the Almighty, and something incredible happened. Not with a voice, but with a feeling. A calm that settled over his heart, a sharpening of his senses. He learned to read the rhythm of the night. He learned that the God of the silence was also the God of the storm. One night the test comes. It's not a wolf this time, it's the king of the beasts. A lion, its eyes glowing like embers in the pitch black. It lunges for a lamb. It's his charge, he doesn't think. He acts. He runs Fay toward Fay the roar. He grabs the lion by its mane, this whirlwind of muscle and fury, and with a strength he did not know he possessed, he ends it. He stands there, panting, bloodied, the dead predator at his feet, and he understands. His prayer wasn't a plea for rescue. It was a declaration of partnership. He had to show up. From that day on, every time fear crept in, David didn't just pray about the new fear. He would first look back. He would remember the dead lion. He would remember the slain bear. He would anchor his present fear to the reality of his past deliverance. He was building a library of evidence in his soul, proof that he was not alone in the darkness. He didn't know it yet, but this lonely, terrifying training ground was forging the very weapon he would need to face a monster. He's a young man on an errand, bringing food to his brothers on the front lines of a real war. He arrives not to the sounds of battle, but to the sound of mockery. The entire army of Israel, thousands of trained soldiers, are cowering in their trenches. Why? Because of a single man. Goliath, try to picture him. He's not just a tall man, he's a biological impossibility. Over 9 feet tall, his armor alone, he is a walking siege engine, and for 40 days he has stood before the army of Israel and psychologically dismantled them. Every morning and every evening, he bellows his challenge, his voice echoing across the valley. Send me a man that we may fight together. You are slaves, I defy your God. This is not just a physical threat, it's a spiritual assault. He is mocking their identity, their faith, their very reason. It is the voice of their deepest inadequacy, the voice of their most profound fear, the voice that says, "You are not enough." It's the same voice that whispers to you at 3 a.m. David hears this, and he doesn't feel fear. He feels fury. An indignation rises up in him. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Notice his question he doesn't ask. He has reframed the entire battle. It is not about Israel's strength versus Goliath's strength. It is about Goliath's arrogance versus God's honor. Everyone else sees a giant they can't possibly kill. David sees a blasphemer who can't possibly win. His brother Eliab, hearing his confident talk, scoffs at him. "I know your pride and the evil of your heart. You came down just to watch the battle." The sting of that accusation. It's a familiar pain, the world trying to shrink you back down to the role it has assigned you. But David is operating from a different reality now. He is brought before King Saul. The king, a giant of a man himself, looks at this young man and sees only a boy. "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth." Saul sees the impossible odds. He just presents a different set of facts. This is where his nighttime training comes into play. He doesn't say, "I'm strong," he says. "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock, I went after it and struck it and delivered the lamb from its mouth. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Do you see it? Remembrance. He's not mustering up courage from thin air. He is drawing it from the well of his past deliverances. He's telling Saul, "This giant is no different from the lion, he's just bigger. But my God is bigger than both." Saul is stunned. He sees a faith so irrational, so utterly convinced, that it bends reality around it. He agrees. He tries to put his own armor on David, the armor of a king, but it doesn't fit. It's too heavy. David can't walk in it. And here we see another crucial element. David rejects the world's solutions. He will not fight this battle on the enemy's terms. He takes off the king's armor. He takes off the world's expectations. And he walks toward the valley with what he knows. His staff, his sling, and 5 smooth stones from a brook. Why 5 stones? Some say it was in case he missed. 5 points of contact with the God who had never failed him. As he walks down into that valley, imagine the silence. An entire army holding its breath. The only sound is Goliath's laughter, a booming, ugly sound that shakes the very ground. "Am I a dog, that you come to me with sticks?" The giant curses David by his gods. He promises to feed David's flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. Goliath is trying to speak a reality of terror and death over David. But David has his own reality to speak. And this is the third principle of his prayer, declaration. He doesn't just believe it in his heart, he speaks it into the atmosphere. He shouts back, his voice clear and ringing with authority, "You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel." This is not a prayer of supplication, it is a prayer of proclamation. It's a prophecy of victory spoken in the face of certain defeat. He is telling the giant, the armies, the universe itself what the outcome is going to be. He is speaking the end from the beginning. Then he runs. He doesn't hesitate. He puts a stone in his sling, and as he runs, he whirls it faster and faster. A single perfect shot. The stone sinks into the giant's forehead, the one tiny spot unprotected by bronze, and the impossible happens. The giant falls. The earth trembles. A collective gasp rises from 2 armies. David, the boy, stands over the dead behemoth. He takes the giant's own sword and removes his head. The battle is over. What destroyed Goliath was not a stone. It was a story. A story David had been living and telling himself alone in the dark for years. A story of a God who was with him. The stone was just the final word in that story. This same 3-part weapon, brutal honesty about the fear, remembering past victories, and declaring a future triumph, is the weapon he used to conquer the giant. But his battle, the victory over Goliath, catapults David from obscurity to national fame. The crowds sing his praises. Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And with those words, a new monster is born, not in the valley of Elah, but in the heart of King Saul, the monster of jealousy, the monster of insecurity. David now finds himself in the gilded cage of the royal. He's the king's son-in-law, the captain of the army, a hero to the people, but he is also a target. Saul, who once looked at him with favor, now looks at him with a murderous glint in his eye. The king is tormented by an evil spirit, the Bible says. We might call it severe depression, paranoia, bipolar disorder. Whatever the label, the palace becomes a place of unpredictable terror. David is playing his harp, trying to soothe the king's troubled mind, and in a flash of rage, Saul hurls a spear at him, pinning it into the wall where David's head had just been. This happens not once, but twice. Can you feel the tension, the constant, low-grade fear of living with someone so volatile? You can't relax. You can't let your guard down. Every moment is a potential explosion. Your home. This is a different kind of anxiety than facing a lion or a giant. That fear is acute. It has a face and a name. This is a chronic, corrosive anxiety. It eats away at your soul. It's the anxiety of walking on eggshells, of waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's the anxiety many people feel in toxic relationships or high-pressure jobs. During this time, David writes some of his most desperate, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me, and from the words of my groaning? O my God, I cry in the daytime, but you do not hear, and in the night season, and am not silent. That's Psalm 22. It's pure, raw anguish. It's the first step, brutal honesty. He's not pretending to be a stoic hero. He is laying his brokenness bare. He accuses God of... But then, watch how he pivots. In the very next verses he says, but you are wholly enthroned in the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted in you. They trusted, and you delivered them. There it is, the second step, remembrance. He's in a living nightmare, but he forces his mind to look back. He remembers the stories of his ancestors. He remembers God's track record. He's fighting his present feelings with his past knowledge. The psalm ends with a triumphant proclamation of God's ultimate victory and vindication. He speaks of a future he cannot yet see. He is doing the exact same thing he did in the valley with Goliath. He is speaking a future reality into his present darkness. This becomes his survival mechanism. The palace is no longer safe. His life is in constant peril. Saul actively tries to have him killed. His wife Michal, Saul's daughter, helps a wanted man. He loses everything in an instant. His position, his home, his wife, his best friend Jonathan. He is alone, on the run, hunted by the very king he served. He flees to the town of Nob, to the priest Ahimelech. He's desperate, hungry. He lies to the priest to get bread and Goliath's sword, a small lie born of fear that will have horrific consequences later when Saul finds out, and the guilt of this will haunt David for years. From there he flees into enemy territory, the Philistine city of Gath, the hometown of Goliath. It is a crazy, desperate move. He's recognized almost immediately. Can you imagine the sheer terror? He is trapped in the lion's den, the very city whose champion he killed. What does he do? He feigns madness. He scratches on the doors of... He makes himself contemptible, pathetic, non-threatening, and it works. The king of Gath dismisses him as a madman. David escapes with his life. But at what cost to his dignity, his spirit? He flees to a cave, the cave of Adullam. This is his absolute lowest point. He is a fugitive, a liar, a madman in the eyes of his enemies, and a traitor in the eyes of his... He is utterly alone in the dark, damp silence of a cave. This cave is the 3 a.m. of the soul. There are no distractions here, no duties to perform, just him and his failures, his fears, his brokenness. And it is here, in this place of total despair, that he pens another psalm, Psalm 142. The title of this psalm in the original Hebrew says, a prayer of David when he was in the... I cry out to the Lord with my voice. With my voice to the Lord I make my supplication. I pour out my complaint before him. I declare before him my trouble. When my spirit was overwhelmed within me, then you knew my path. Brutal honesty. He's not trying to sound spiritual. He's overwhelmed. He's pouring out his complaint. He's telling God exactly how crushed he feels. Then the pivot, remember. I have cried out to you, O Lord. I have said, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. He forces himself to remember who God is even when every circumstance screams the opposite, and then the declaration, "Bring my soul out of prison, that I may praise your name." He is praying for his future release. He is speaking of a day when he will praise again. In the darkest pit, he is planting a flag of future hope. Others start to find him in that cave, the discontented, the in debt, the distressed. 400 broken men, society's outcasts, gather around David, and this broken man, hiding in a cave, becomes their captain. He begins to build a new life, a new army, forged in the fires of adversity. For years, he lives like this. A guerrilla warrior king hiding in the wilderness. Constantly twice, David has the opportunity to kill Saul. Once in a cave where he secretly cuts off a corner of Saul's robe. Another time, he sneaks into Saul's camp at night and takes the spear and water jug from right beside the sleeping king. Both times, his men urge him to kill his pursuer. It would be so easy. It would end his suffering. But David refuses. "The Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed." In these moments, David is not just fighting Saul. He is fighting the temptation to solve his problems his own way, to take the shortcut, to embrace the darkness. He chooses to trust God's timing, even when it prolongs his own agony. This is a profound form of trust, a quiet declaration that his future is in God's hands, not his own. If you are finding this story of overcoming ancient fears resonates with your own, it helps us bring more stories of resilience and faith like this to light, turning ancient wisdom into modern strength. Thank you for that. Let's return to the wilderness where David's character is being forged. The years pass. Saul and his son Jonathan are killed in battle against the Philistines. The news reaches David, and he doesn't rejoice. He weeps. He mourns for the king who tried to kill him and the friend who saved him. His heart is not. David is anointed king, first over Judah, and then over all of Israel. He has made it from the shepherd's field to the throne, from the fugitive's cave to the palace. It seems like the story should end here. The anxiety should be over. He has power, wealth, a kingdom. The monsters are finally gone. But the most dangerous monster was yet to come, and this time it would rise from within his own heart. His enemies are subdued. It's a time of peace and prosperity, and in times of ease we are often at our most vulnerable. One evening, David is walking on the roof of his palace. He should have been at war with his men, but he stayed behind. He has grown comfortable from the rooftop. He sees a beautiful woman bathing. Her name is Bathsheba, and in that moment, a new battle begins, a battle of lust, of entitlement, of power. He knows she is another man's wife, the wife of Uriah the Hittite, one of his most loyal soldiers, who is at that very moment fighting David's war. Bathsheba becomes pregnant. Panic sets in. This is not the noble David we know. This is a man trying to cover his tracks. He brings Uriah back from the battle, hoping he will sleep with his wife, thus covering up the child's true parentage. But Uriah, he refuses to go to his own house while his comrades are sleeping in the fields of battle. He sleeps on the steps of the palace. David's plan has failed, so he moves to plan B. A darker plan: he gets Uriah drunk. Still, the soldier will not go home. The panic turns to cold calculation. David writes a letter, seals it, and gives it to Uriah to deliver to the army commander, Joab. The letter put Uriah in the forefront of the fiercest battle, and then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die. Joab obeys. Uriah the Hittite, a man of unwavering loyalty, is murdered by the king he served. David marries Bathsheba. The child is born. On the surface, he has gotten away with it. The secret is buried. The anxiety should be gone. The gnawing, hollow anxiety of guilt, the fear of being found out. For almost a year, he lives with this poison in his soul. He writes about it later in Psalm 32, "When I kept silent, my bones grew old through my groaning all the day long. For day and night your hand was heavy upon me. My vitality was turned into the drought of summer." This is the internal enemy. It saps your strength. It hollows you out. It's the constant, low-humming dread that you are a fraud, that one day your mask will slip, and everyone will see the monster you truly are. Then one day, the prophet Nathan comes to the king. He doesn't accuse him directly. He tells him a story, a parable about a rich man with many flocks, who stole the one precious lamb of a poor man to feed a guest. David's sense of justice is ignited. "As the Lord lives," he declares, "the man who has done this shall surely die." And Nathan looks him in the eye and delivers four of the most terrifying words in Scripture: "You are the man." The world stops, the secret is out. The carefully constructed facade shatters into a million pieces. There is nowhere left to hide. The king is naked, exposed, a murderer and an adulterer. And in this moment of utter, he can execute the prophet. He can deny the accusation. He can double down on his pride, but he doesn't. He does the one thing that can save him. He breaks completely. His one-sentence reply is the model of all true repentance. "I have sinned against the Lord." That is it. No excuses, no justifications. Just a confession. A moment of pure, brutal honesty. Nathan tells him that God has put away. The sword will never depart from his house. The child born of the affair will die. The next days are agonizing. David fasts and prays, begging God to spare the child. But the child dies, and David's reaction is shocking. He gets up, washes, anoints himself, and worships. His servants are confused, but David understands. The judgment has passed. He has accepted the consequences. What follows is the birth of Psalm 51, perhaps the most profound prayer of repentance ever written. "Have mercy upon me, O God, according to your loving kindness. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is always before me." This is the prayer of a man who has faced the monster within and has been broken by it. And in that he asks God not just for forgiveness, but for a new heart. "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me." He has learned that the greatest enemy is not the giant on the outside, but the corruption on the inside. His prayer life has evolved. He no longer just prays for deliverance from external threats. He now prays for deliverance from himself. But the consequences, Nathan prophesies, the sword that will never depart from his house will be wielded by his own children. His family becomes a hotbed of dysfunction, rivalry, and violence. His son Amnon rapes his half-sister Tamar. Tamar's brother Absalom nurses a grudge for 2 years before murdering Amnon in revenge. Absalom then flees into exile. David is caught in a spiral of grief and inaction. He loves his children, but he is paralyzed, perhaps by his own past guilt. He eventually allows Absalom to return, but their relationship is broken. Absalom, handsome, charismatic, and ambitious, begins to steal the hearts of the people of Israel. He stands at the city gates, listening to people's grievances and telling them, "If only I were judge in the land, then every man with any suit or cause might come to me." The anxiety in the palace must have been thick enough to cut with a knife. David watches his son's betrayal unfold in slow motion, and then the day comes. The conspiracy is strong. The people supporting Absalom are increasing. A messenger comes to David with the devastating news. The hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom. David, the great warrior, the giant, slayer, the man who unified a kingdom, is forced to flee his own city, his own palace. As he and his household escape Jerusalem, it is a parade of shame. He walks barefoot and weeping. People who once cheered him now curse him. A man named Shimei from the house of Saul runs along the hillside, throwing stones and dust at the king, cursing him. Come out, you bloodthirsty man, you scoundrel," David's general. Abishai wants to kill the man for his insolence, but David stops him. His response is staggering in its humility. "Let him alone, and let him curse, for so the Lord has ordered him. It may be that the Lord will look on my affliction, and that the Lord will repay me with good for his cursing this day." Do you hear the echo of his past prayers? He is in the midst of the most profound personal and political crisis of his life, being humiliated publicly, and he sees the hand of God in it. He is not fighting it. He is surrendering to it. He is looking for redemption within the pain. He is practicing a radical form of acceptance, trusting that even this horror is part of a larger unseen story. This is a new level of faith, born from a lifetime of struggle. The civil David, waiting for news from the battlefield, is not concerned about the kingdom. He has one overriding concern. He tells his commanders, "Deal gently for my sake with the young man Absalom." But Absalom, riding his mule under the thick branches of a great oak, gets his long hair caught in the tree. He is left hanging helpless, and Joab, David's ruthless commander, finds him and thrusts 3 javelins. The rebellion is over. The messengers run to tell David the good news. But David has only one question. Is the young man Absalom safe? The messenger has to deliver the terrible truth. The king's great victory is his most profound personal loss. David's grief is monumental. He goes up to the chamber over the gate and weeps. And as he weeps, he cries, "O my son Absalom! My son Absalom, if only I had died in your place. O Absalom, my son, my son." In the end, what breaks this mighty king is not a giant, or a spear, or a conspiracy. It is the love for his rebellious son here. In this final, devastating crucible, we see the heart of David laid bare, a broken-hearted father through all these years, from the shepherd's field to the throne room, from the fugitive's cave to the day he fled his own son. David's life was a relentless series of anxieties. Anxiety from external threats, anxiety from internal guilt, anxiety from relational betrayal. So how did he survive? He survived because he had forged a weapon in the dark nights of his youth. It was his unique, powerful, 3-step prayer. The prayer that can become your weapon against the darkness. So what does this look like for you tonight when you lie in bed and the anxieties of your life begin to circle like wolves? It's a 3-minute drill, a spiritual battle plan. Step 1, confront the monster. This is the prayer of brutal honesty. For 1 minute, you give your anxiety a voice. You don't try to, you speak it out loud, even in a whisper, to God. God, I am terrified of losing my job. I am consumed with guilt over what I said to my partner. I am filled with dread about the medical test results. I feel so alone, so forgotten, so overwhelmed. Don't edit yourself. Don't be polite. Pour out your complaint, just as David did. Unload the raw, unfiltered truth of your fear and drag the monster out of the shadows and into the light. Step 2, recall your victories. This is the prayer of remembrance. For the next minute, you deliberately shift your focus. You force your mind away from the current crisis and command it to look back. You will build your own library of evidence. You can start with David's stories. The God who was with David against the lion, against Goliath, against Saul, is with me now. But then, I remember when I thought I wouldn't make it through that breakup, but I did. I remember when I was so scared about that presentation, but I got through it. I remember that time I felt a sense of peace that made no sense. Find the evidence, no matter how small, that you have been carried through darkness before. You are reminding your anxious heart that its current panic is not the whole story. You are anchoring yourself in the reality of past resilience and past grace. You are not asking. You are proclaiming. You are aligning yourself with the truth of God's character over the lies of your fear. You can use David's own words from the Psalms. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Or make it your own. Anxiety, you do not have the final say in my life. Fear, you will not write my story tonight. I declare that I am safe, I am held, I am not alone. You are speaking to the darkness as David spoke to Goliath. You are telling your mountain of fear that it must fall. You are prophesying your own peace. That's it. 3 minutes, confront, remember, declare. This isn't a magic formula that will make all your problems disappear. It is a spiritual discipline. It's a way of training your mind to reject the narrative of fear. David's entire life was a testament to this practice. He was a deeply flawed man, an adulterer, a murderer, a failing father. But he was also called a man after God's own heart. Why? Not because he was perfect, but because he was perpetually, brutally, honest with God. He never hid his darkness. He always brought his brokenness, his fear, and his sin into the light of God's presence. And that is where he found his strength. But it is not invincible. You have a weapon, forged in the wilderness, tested in battle, and proven in the crucible of a king's life. Tonight, when the whispers begin, don't just lie there and take it. Fight back. Pick up your 5 smooth stones, confront the monster, remember your victories, and declare your peace. That's all for today's video. If you like this video, please subscribe,